Picture this. The air in the great city of Chichen Itza is thick, heavy, not just with the Yucatan heat, but with a palpable, terrifying energy. The scent of copal incense burns your nostrils, a sacred smoke meant to commune with the gods. But today it smells like something else. It smells like anticipation. It smells like fear. Below the towering stone walls of the Great Ball Court, the largest ever built by the Maya, a crowd of thousands is utterly silent. Not a single whisper. They are waiting. And in the center of this vast, eye-shaped arena, two men stand facing each other. They are not just athletes, they are conduits. Their bodies, hardened by years of training, are glistening with sweat, but their eyes show nothing but a terrifying, fatalistic focus. They are adorned not in team colors, but in ritual gear, elaborate headdresses representing gods, protective, padding made from hardened leather and wood. In their hands, no bats, no sticks, just the weight of their own bodies, and a single solid rubber ball dot the ball. This is the heart of the madness, forged from the sacred sap of the rubber tree, cured and mixed until it becomes a dense black sphere. It feels alive. It weighs as much as a human head, some say 8–10 pounds. To strike it with your bare flesh is to risk breaking bones. To let it strike you is to invite unimaginable pain. And the rules, they are deceptively simple, horrifyingly difficult. You cannot use your hands. You cannot use your feet. You must keep this cannonball of solid rubber in the air using only your hips, your thighs, your shoulders, and your chest. You must propel it with brutal, controlled force across the court, aiming for one of two stone rings mounted high, vertiginously high on the slanted walls of the court. To send the ball through that ring, a hole barely larger than the ball itself, is to achieve a feat so rare it is considered a sign from the heavens. It is meant to be a reenactment of the Maya creation myth, a cosmic battle between the hero, twins, and the lords of death in the underworld of Xibalba. A divine metaphor played out in flesh and blood. But this is not a metaphor, not today. The silence is broken by a deep, resonant blow of a conch shell. The game begins. The thud of the rubber ball striking a player's hip pad echoes through the court like a gunshot. Thump, a gasp from the crowd. Thump. The sound is brutal, visceral. The players move with a grace that belies the violence of their actions, diving, spinning, launching themselves to redirect the ball's murderous trajectory. This is not a sport. It is a physical prayer, an offering of exertion and pain to the gods to ensure the sun will rise again, the rains will come, and the world will not descend back into chaos. The score is kept, but it is irrelevant. The real stakes are not on some scoreboard. They are written in the eyes of the captives on one team, men taken in war, who know what a loss truly means. They are playing for more than glory. They are playing for their lives. And as the game reaches its climax, as one team finally gains a decisive, unassailable advantage, the crowd's murmur shifts. The anticipation of victory is replaced by something darker, something ancient and hungry. The cheering stops. The ritual is over. The sacrifice is about to begin. The winning team does not celebrate. They kneel. The losing team does not hang its head in shame. They stand tall, for they are about to become the most important players on the court. The ball has stopped bouncing. The only sound now is the heavy breathing of the athletes and the slow ceremonial steps of the high priest as he walks onto the sacred pavement. A blade of obsidian gleaming in his hand, blacker than the rubber ball, sharper than a jaguar's tooth dot. The thud of the rubber ball has been replaced by a new, more terrifying sound. The sound of absolute silence, broken only by the rustle of the high priest's feathered mantle and the faint, rhythmic click of jade ornaments swaying with each step. He moves with a slow, deliberate grace, a dancer in the final act of a deadly performance. His eyes are not on the kneeling winners, nor the nervous crowd. They are fixed on the losing captain, who stands motionless, his chest heaving not from exhaustion now, but from a primal understanding of the fate he agreed to the moment he stepped onto this sacred ground. This is not a punishment. In the Maya worldview, this is the ultimate honor. It is a transaction, a contract written in blood with the gods themselves. The priest stops before him. He doesn't speak. He simply raises the obsidian blade. The material is volcanic glass, fractured tone edge so fine, so atomically sharp, it can split a single cell. It is not a tool of butchery. It is an instrument of precision. The crowd holds its breath. There is no jeering, no bloodthirsty scream. This is a sacrament. The winning team remains on their knees, their heads bowed not in respect for their opponent, but for the sacred duty he is about to fulfill. The captive's eyes are wide, but they do not show fear. They show a fierce, terrifying pride. He has fought well. He has provided a great game, a worthy spectacle for the gods. And now, his body, his life force, his chulel, his soul, will become the ultimate offering. His death will nourish the deities, ensuring the continuity of the cosmos. His blood will become the rain that waters the maize. His strength will become the sun's power to rise. The blade flashes in the sun. The movement is too fast to follow. It is not a hack, not a chop. It is a single, fluid, expert motion. The sound is not what you would expect. It is a wet, hollow sigh. The captain's body does not crumple immediately. It stands for a heart-stopping second, a final act of defiance against gravity, a testament to the warrior spirit that once inhabited it. Then, like a great tree felled, it collapses onto the meticulously paved court. The dark, almost black blood, rich with the chulel, pools around the stone, seeping into the seams between the rocks, feeding the earth. This is the moment the silence shatters. The crowd erupts, but it is not a roar of horror. It is a roar of ecstatic relief, of gratitude, of religious fervor. They are not celebrating a death. They are celebrating life, renewed by this sacrifice. The priest's assistants move in swiftly. Their job is not to hide the body, but to honor it. This is where the story twists from the realm of the spiritual into the territory of the truly viscerally inhuman. The body is not merely taken away for burial. It is treated with a reverence that is, to our modern eyes, utterly grotesque. The headdress is removed with care. The hip pads, the markers of his station as a ball player, are unbuckled. And then, the work begins. Using smaller, equally sharp, obsidian blades, they begin the process of decapitation. It is a skilled, ritualized act. The head is not severed with savage blows. It is carefully separated from the torso, the spine expertly divided. This is not desecration. It is the opposite. The head is the seat of the soul, the very essence of the person. It must be preserved. Once free, it is lifted, dripping, into the air for the crowd to see. A new wave of sound, even louder, crashes against the stone walls of the ball court. This head will be cleaned, the flesh stripped away, the skull adorned with jade and shell to replace the eyes and teeth. It will become a sacred relic, perhaps placed in a niche in the ball court itself, or kept by the ruling lord as a conduit to the divine. But the ritual is not yet over. The body itself is still sacred. In some of the most brutal and well-documented cases, the corpse is then flayed. The skin is removed in a single, gruesome piece, a grisly suit. Another priest, or sometimes the winning captain himself, will then don this skin. He will wrap himself in the flesh of his defeated opponent and proceed to perform a macabre, slow dance around the circumference of the ball court. This act is the final, terrifying absorption of the victim's power, his strength, his very being. The winner becomes the loser, and the loser becomes immortal, his life force now inextricably woven into the fate of the city, his blood the ink in the covenant between man and God. The game is over. The offering is complete. The world, for another day, is saved. For centuries, the rhythm held. The game, the sacrifice, the renewal. It was the heartbeat of the Maya world, a brutal but necessary cycle that maintained the cosmic order. The ball court was a temple, the players were priests, and the rubber ball was a wandering star whose trajectory decided fates. But nothing pure can last forever. Power has a way of corrupting the sacred, of twisting ritual into a weapon. And as Maya civilization reached its peak, swelling into powerful, rival city-states like Tikal, Calakmul, and Copan, the ballgame began to change. The stakes were no longer just about feeding the gods. They were about humiliating your enemies, projecting strength, and rewriting the very stories the game was meant to tell. The shift was subtle at first. A king, let's call him King Jaguar Paw of a rising city, watches the ritual. He sees the immense power it holds over the people, the way it focuses their faith and their fear. He sees the captured king from a rival state kneel and achieve a kind of bloody immortality. And a thought occurs to him. Why should the victory of a mere ball player reflect on the glory of the gods alone? Why shouldn't it reflect on me? So, he begins to insert himself into the narrative. He commissions new carvings on the stone panels flanking the ball court. But these are not just carvings of the game itself. They show the king, larger than life, presiding over the spectacle. They show him, not the high priest, accepting the homage of the defeated. The message is clear. The king is the conduit to the gods. His power is divine. The ritual still serves the cosmos, but now it also serves the throne. Then, the calculations become more cynical. Warfare was constant, a way to capture slaves, secure resources, and assert dominance. And what was a more potent symbol of dominance than forcing the captured sons of a rival king to play the sacred game on your home court? This is where the ritual curdles into pure psychological warfare. The game is fixed from the start. The outcome is predetermined. The captives are not given a true chance to win. They are set up to fail, to become a sacrificial offering that doesn't nourish the gods, but one that mocks their entire lineage. Their death is no longer an honor. It is a statement. It says, "My gods are stronger than your gods. My kingdom has defeated yours so utterly that we use your royal blood as fertilizer for our maize." The ball court becomes a theater of propaganda. The reenactment of the hero twins against the lords of Xibalba is rewritten. Now the winning team, the home team, are the hero twins. The losing team, the captives, are no longer just worthy opponents. They are cast as the lords of death themselves, the villains of the cosmos. Their slaughter is not just a sacrifice, it is the triumph of good over evil, with the local king starring as the hero of the story. The perversion of the game sinks to even darker depths. With so much political capital riding on the outcome, the idea of a fair contest becomes inconvenient. How can a king risk the embarrassment of his own team losing, of his own players being sacrificed, and his narrative of invincibility shattered? So, the game is rigged, not with simple cheating, but with a terrifying, supernatural edge. Priests, in the service of the king, masters of ritual and plant lore, begin to intervene. The night before a big game, a politically crucial game, they might slip into the quarters housing the rival team, the captives. As an offering of respect, they bring them a special chocolate drink, thick and bitter. What the captives don't know is that it's laced with powerful hallucinogens, extracts from the Jimson weed or morning glory seeds. The captives drink it, believing it to be part of the sacred preparation. But as the drug takes hold, their world dissolves into a waking nightmare. The world spins. The faces of the gods leer at them from the shadows. Their coordination fails. Their focus shatters. The next day, they stumble onto the court, their minds fractured, their bodies betraying them. They are in no state to play a game that requires pinpoint precision and immense physical control. They fumble. They miss easy shots. They are clumsy and disoriented. The crowd doesn't see men drugged into incapacity. They see men who are clearly cursed by the gods, men who are unworthy, men who have the moral weakness of the lords of Xibalba. The victory is a foregone conclusion. The home team wins effortlessly. The crowd roars its approval at the divine justice on display. The captives are led to the ritual stone, their minds still lost in a psychedelic haze, unable to even comprehend the fate that awaits them. Their death is not a sacred offering. It is a political assassination disguised as a sacrament. The king watches from his throne, a thin, satisfied smile hidden behind a mask of solemn piety. The gods have been fed, his enemies have been humiliated, and his power has been cemented. The ball game is no longer a portal to the spirit world. It has become a tool of the state, a bloody game of thrones played with a rubber ball. The echo of the rigged game, the sight of drugged captives stumbling to their preordained doom. These actions did not go unnoticed. Not by the people, and certainly not by the gods. A deep spiritual rot began to set in. The once unbreakable covenant between the Maya and their deities was fraying, becoming a transaction of empty theatrics and bad faith. And as the classic Maya period began its mysterious, painful collapse around the 9th century AD, the great stone ball courts fell silent. The cities were abandoned to the jungle, the sacred precincts reclaimed by roots and vines. The gods, it seemed, had rejected the offering. But the idea of the game itself was too powerful, too potent to ever truly die. It was a seed carried on the wind, and it would find new soil in which to grow, far more fertile and far more brutal. It was carried north to the high valleys of Mexico, to a people who would take its essential violence and strip away any last pretense of sacredness. The Maya played for the gods. The Aztecs would play for themselves. Imagine the scene now, not in a Maya city, but in the heart of the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan. The air doesn't smell of damp stone and incense alone. It smells of a metropolis, of water from the canals, of 100,000 people, of power. The ball court here is not a standalone temple. It is part of the ceremonial precinct, right next to the great temple itself, the Templo Mayor, with its twin shrines to Tlaloc, the rain god, and Huitzilopochtli, the god of sun and war. The connection is immediate and blatant. The game is directly tied to the state's two most important concerns, agriculture and warfare. The Aztecs, master synthesizers, had adopted the game from their predecessors, but they made it unmistakably their own. For them, it was Ulamalistli, and their interpretation was terrifyingly literal. The Aztec version lost the Maya's sense of spiritual ambiguity. There was no grey area. The ball court was a concrete model of the cosmos, and the game was a direct representation of the daily battle of the sun against the forces of darkness. The sun, Huitzilopochtli, needed strength, tonali, life force, in the form of human blood to make his journey across the sky each day. A loss on the ball court wasn't just a loss, it was a symbolic victory for the stars and the moon, the enemies of the sun. It was a national security crisis. Therefore, the stakes had to be unimaginably high to ensure victory. The Aztecs, the most militant society Mesoamerica ever produced, turned the game into the ultimate gamble, a wager so high it could only be made by the most powerful men in the empire. It is said that the great emperor Moctezuma II himself would sometimes play. And he wouldn't play for trinkets. He would wager entire provinces. He would bet the annual tribute of subject states, jade, gold, quetzal feathers, cocoa beans, the very wealth of the empire, on the outcome of a single game. His opponents, noblemen from rival cities, or perhaps even his own generals, would bet their land, their titles, their entire lineages. But the most infamous wager, the one that truly reveals the Aztec soul, was a man betting himself. A nobleman, confident in his skill, could step onto the court and wager his own freedom. Victory meant unimaginable riches, land, and prestige from his defeated opponent. Defeat meant something else entirely. It meant he and his entire family would be stripped of their noble status and sold into slavery. But it could get even darker. There are accounts of teams playing the ultimate high-stakes match. The winners would win everything. The losers would lose everything. Their fate was not slavery, it was the sacrificial stone. The entire losing team would be marched directly from the court to the summit of the Templo Mayor, their hearts ripped out and their bodies sent tumbling down the steps to feed the gods they had failed to please. The Aztecs had taken the Maya's ritual outcome and turned it into the central, publicized point of the entire event. The gamble was the ritual. This created a horrifying pressure. Aztec players were not just athletes, they were high-stakes traders betting with their own lives. The physicality of their game became even more extreme. They used heavier, more protective hipstones, sometimes shaped like animal heads, jaguars, eagles, symbols of the warrior orders. The plays became more aggressive, the dives more dangerous. A missed shot wasn't just a point for the other team, it was a step closer to financial ruin or a death sentence. The crowd's energy was different too. This wasn't a reverent, silent Maya audience. This was a roaring, betting, partisan Aztec crowd, screaming for their favorites, gasping at a bad play, watching a nobleman's entire world evaporate with the thud of a rubber ball. The game had been commercialized, weaponized. It was a gladiatorial combat mixed with a high-finance derivatives market where the currency was human life. The Maya believed the game influenced the gods. The Aztecs believed the game was the god's mechanism, and they were ruthless, calculating players in it. They didn't just play to honor the sun. They played to be the sun, crushing the stars under their hips, no matter the cost. The sound that echoed through the Aztec ball court was not just the thud of rubber on stone, or the gasp of a crowd watching a nobleman gamble his life away. It was the sound of an entire world, a cosmology vibrating at a frequency of absolute terrifying certainty, a certainty that would be its undoing. For the Aztecs, the universe had rules. The gods demanded blood, the sun demanded victory, and the ball game was the ultimate expression of this contract. It was the highest form of reason. But in 1528, a different sound was heard in the great courtyard of Moctezuma's palace, a sound that came from a world the Aztecs did not know existed. It was the sound of Spanish leather boots on the stones, the clank of steel, and the low, confident voices of men who worshipped a god that had already died once, a god who preached turning the other cheek. The Spanish conquistadors, led by Hernán Cortés, were not just military invaders, they were ideological shock troops. They saw the world through a lens of absolute Catholic faith, and a hunger for gold that they convinced themselves was a holy mission. And when they witnessed the Aztec ball game, they didn't see a profound cultural and religious ritual. They saw the work of the devil. They saw paganism, idolatry, and senseless, brutal violence. The Dominican friar Diego Duran, one of the primary chroniclers of Aztec life, wrote of the game with a mixture of horrified fascination and utter disgust. He described the heavy ball, the brutal plays, the wagering of homes and children, and the potential for sacrifice. To his European eyes, it was not a sport, it was a satanic spectacle. This fundamental, unbridgeable misunderstanding sealed the fate of the game. The Spanish didn't just want to conquer the Aztec Empire, they wanted to annihilate its soul. And the ball game was the heart of that soul. The destruction was systematic and merciless. The great ball court of Tenochtitlan, that sacred stage next to the Templo Mayor, was one of the first structures to be torn apart. Its stones were looted to build Spanish churches and government buildings, a literal and metaphorical dismantling of the old gods to erect the new. The Spanish banned the game outright. They saw it not as recreation, but as a rallying point for pagan sentiment, a dangerous continuation of the old ways. They burned the codices that depicted its rules and rituals. They forbade the playing of it under the punishment of whipping, imprisonment, or worse. They were particularly horrified by the rubber ball itself. In Europe, they had nothing like it. A substance that could bounce? It defied their understanding of physics. Some believed it was sorcery, that it was alive, possessed by an evil spirit. The game, and the miraculous material at its center, became a symbol of everything strange, terrifying, and heretical about this new world. It had to be erased, but you cannot erase a tradition that is thousands of years old with a simple decree. The game did not die, it was driven underground. In remote villages, far from the eyes of Spanish priests and magistrates, people continued to play. They couldn't build grand stone courts, so they used the natural landscape. They couldn't wager empires, so they wagered small goods, drinks, and pride. The sacred context faded, replaced by community and tradition. It became a folk game, a secret kept by the conquered, a quiet act of cultural resistance. For centuries it survived this way, a ghost of its former self, its original meaning slowly fading from memory, preserved only in fragments of story, and the stubborn persistence of the play itself. The final, cruelest twist of the story is that the Spanish, in their zeal to destroy the game, became the very agents that would globalize its most iconic element. They were fascinated and terrified by the bouncing rubber. They took samples of this strange material back to Europe, where it was first viewed as a curiosity. It wasn't until centuries later, with the invention of vulcanization, that this sacred sap of the Mesoamerican rubber tree would become the foundation of the Industrial Revolution. Tires, hoses, gaskets, and eventually, the billions of rubber balls used in sports around the world. The soul of the ulamalisli was stripped out, commodified, and sold back to the world in a sanitized form. The modern games we play, basketball, soccer, tennis, all owe a distant, unrecognized debt to that heavy black ball that once decided the fates of kings and the movement of the sun. Today, the stone rings of the great ball courts stand silent, empty. The roar of the crowds is gone. The scent of blood and copal incense has been replaced by the quiet hum of tourist cameras. We look at these places as archaeological sites, as history. We see the carvings of decapitated ball players, and we shudder, confident in our modern superiority. We have arenas where men fight, but we call it UFC and pay them millions. We have games of immense stakes, but we wager stock portfolios and cryptocurrency. We have rituals of sacrifice, but we sacrifice our time, our health, our privacy on the altars of social media and corporate ambition. The means have changed, the impulses have not. The Mesoamerican ball game holds up a dark, ancient mirror to our own world. It asks you an uncomfortable question. What are the brutal, sacred, inhumane games we are playing right now? And what, or who, are we sacrificing to keep our own world spinning? The final whistle on the original game has blown, but the echo of that rubber ball thumping against the stone of our own civilization is a sound we have never stopped hearing. The stone rings are empty. The grand courts are silent, monuments to a worldview that was systematically dismantled, first by the Spanish conquest, and then by the relentless march of a new, globalized modernity. We walk through them now as tourists, as scholars, peering at the intricate carvings of decapitated ball players with a mixture of morbid fascination and distant horror. It is easy to look back and label the Maya and Aztec practices as the peak of ancient brutality, a relic of a more savage time. We tell ourselves we have evolved. Our games are civilized. Our rituals are sanitized. We have replaced the blood-soaked sand of the Tlachtli court with the manicured grass of the soccer pitch, the rubber ball with a leather one, and the wager of human lives with the waving of foam fingers and the betting of money. We have built a comfortable, reassuring distance between ourselves and the spectacle of death. But this distance is an illusion. The arena was never just a physical place. It is a state of mind. And it is everywhere. Look at our own coliseums. Every Sunday, in stadiums that would dwarf the great ball court of Chichen Itza, millions gather to watch modern gladiators. We do not call them that, of course. We call them athletes. We adorn them not in ritual headdresses, but in logos worth billions of dollars. They are conduits, not for the will of the gods, but for the pride of a city, the identity of a nation. And they too, to make an offering of their bodies. We watch, mesmerized, as they collide with a violence that echoes the thud of the rubber ball on a hip. We celebrate the big hit, the brutal tackle. We know the price. We've seen the documentaries about CTE, the chronic traumatic encephalopathy that slowly erodes the minds of these modern warriors, turning their brains to mush, their lives into a long, slow sacrifice after the cheering has stopped. We know this, and yet the game goes on. The revenue flows, the crowd roars, the offering is accepted. We have not ended the ritual. We have merely medicalized the sacrifice and commercialized. The divinity. The gambling is the same. The Aztec emperor wagering a province on a game of ulamalisli is not so different from the modern investment banker who moves billions of dollars on the outcome of a futures contract, or the addict who puts their family's home on a point spread. The stakes are still life-altering. The rush is the same, the utter absorption in a high-stakes moment where fate hangs in the balance. We have digitized the wager, globalized the casino, and removed the immediate sight of the losing nobleman being led to his death. But the fundamental human drive, to risk everything on a moment of chance and skill, has not changed a single bit. We have just found cleaner, more abstract ways to do it. The bookie is an app. The bloodletting is financial. And what of our sacrifices? We no longer believe a heart must be ripped out to ensure the sun rises. Our cosmology is different. Our gods have new names: the economy, the algorithm, national security, progress, and they are just as hungry, just as insatiable as Huitzilopochtli ever was. We do not tear out hearts on a pyramid. We sacrifice our privacy on the altar of social media, offering up our most personal data to feed the insatiable gods of engagement and ad revenue. We sacrifice our mental health at the altar of productivity, burning ourselves out for the glory of the corporation. We sacrifice our young on the altars of endless foreign wars, fought for reasons as opaque and divinely mandated as any Maya myth. The methods are cleaner. The blood is often invisible, but the transaction is identical. We give up something precious to appease a power we believe is greater than ourselves, hoping it will grant us stability, prosperity, or simply keep the chaos at bay. The most terrifying parallel is the spectacle itself. The Maya and Aztec crowds were not monsters. They were ordinary people, caught up in a system of belief that normalized the unimaginable. Their silence, their cheers, and their acceptance were the glue that held the ritual together. And so are we. We are the crowd now. We click, we scroll, we consume. We are mesmerized by the digital coliseum of the internet, where the gladiatorial combat is fought with words and ideas, where the goal is not to score a point through a stone ring, but to destroy an opponent's reputation, to humiliate them, to feed them to the lions of public opinion for a moment of viral fame. We watch the mythological tortures play out on our screens every day. Public shamings, cancellations, the burning of reputations instead of bodies. The tunica molesta is now a trending hashtag. The roar of the crowd is the incessant ping of notifications. The story of the Mesoamerican Ballgame is not a strange, antiquated tale. It is a warning. It is a mirror. It shows us that the line between sacred ritual and brutal spectacle is razor thin. It shows us that when a society becomes too comfortable with using life as a means to an end, whether that end is pleasing a god, consolidating power, or simply entertaining the masses, it has already lost a piece of its own humanity. The game never ended. The court was just remodeled. The price of admission is your attention, and the only thing that has truly changed is that we are no longer honest enough to call the sacrifice by its real name. The ball is still in play, and we are all, every one of us, still on the court.